Welcome, Dr. Eddie Capparucci is joining again today. Note, I'm going to say this on camera. The first one in January, we're skipping over because it's January 1st. We're not going to be here, but he's going to do a twofer the end of January and the beginning of February. So back to back 2 weeks. So pay attention to the calendar on that, but join us live if you can. So without further ado, Dr. Eddie, what do you have for us today?
What I have for you today, Tammy, is I think an article, a topic that is something that really doesn't get discussed much. Women who've been betrayed, or just even men who've been betrayed. One of the major questions they ask is, did he or she ever love me? And rightfully so. It's a valid question. I'm not sure I've ever really heard people talking about it, about, like what the answer to that question. And my wife had a client or has a client, and she was very much on that. And it led me to say, you know what, I got to sit down and start, putting thought to this. And I also have to, start doing research about it. And I did. And I published an article on Monday, and my inbox just imploded. I mean, it was incredible the number of emails and responses I got back from that. And I'm very happy to say 99.9 were positive. A lot from those who've been betrayed. So what I want to do, I want to see if we can go a little bit more in depth today about that topic. So does a betrayer love his or her spouse if they are engaged in these types of activities? Um, So what is the purpose? Let me start here, right? What is the purpose of talking about this? And, and I really thought a lot about this as I was putting all of this together, the article. And number one is to give you a better understanding of what goes on in the minds of those who betrayed, because you can't understand. It doesn't make sense. And again, fully understand that. Also to give you a sense of understanding of what your relationship really has been, because you're at a point of not even understanding, do we even have a relationship? Did we ever have a relationship? What's going on? I hope ultimately that what this does maybe take one issue off your plate, that we maybe can put this to bed somewhat, that it can give you a little bit of peace having the understanding of what went on or what is still going on. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm actually gonna refer to myself and my own story a lot today, right? Because again, I want to share with you what goes on in our heads. So, but let's start off with the situation, right? What is like the major issue that we're dealing with that even got us betrayers into dealing with problematic sexual behaviors? And what it comes down to, there's several things. One, we have more of our, we're very compulsive. We have a compulsion disorder, but we also have an attachment wound. We have an attachment. And the reason we have that wound is because when we were younger, we received something that we shouldn't have received, such as some sort of abuse, whether it be mental, verbal, physical, sexual, we received that. Or in a large majority of cases of people who were dealing with problematic sexual behavior, we didn't receive what we should have. And in that, what I'm referring to is in the way of emotional connection, bonding. That's what the attachment wounds are. Attachment wounds are the fact that an individual, because of those scars, struggles to bond fully with other people. That's how it impacts us. It impacts our ability to love other people. And the thing that's just so mind-boggling and frustrating about all of that is we weren't aware of it. We just weren't aware of what it is. Now, go to my story here. Um, I'm an avoidant. I have an avoidant attachment disorder, which means that I will let people close, but only so close. So therefore, it makes it very difficult for them to actually even bond with me, never mind my bonding with them. Right? So keep that in the back of your mind when we'll come back to it. So in most cases, when a betrayer starts a relationship with someone and he starts to develop these, and I'm going to stay with he instead of he and she, and he starts to develop these intense feelings, right? And he feels that he is in love, okay? And he also feels that, you know what, I'm loving you with everything I have, right? It's an intense feeling. It's overwhelming. It's just amazing. But the problem is intensity and intimacy are not the same thing. Because remember, let's go back to the attachment wound, right? You have somebody who doesn't know how to bond this way. Now, he feels like he's bonding this way now when he meets you. He feels this is what he's doing. But what he's really doing is this. And he's not doing it intentionally. He's not doing it so I can get a quick escape. No, no, he just can't go deeper. His brain will not allow him, because of the past wound, will not allow him to go deeper. His fears will not allow him to go deeper. But he sits there and goes, "What fear? I don't have any fear." That's what some of the betrayers say now. I don't remember being fearful. No, because it seemed really natural. You thought it was this, but it wasn't. Just like you find when you start to do inner child work, there's so many things that happened back then that impact the way you think, feel, and act today, and you're just oblivious to all of it. Okay. Mhm. So the problem is, he's saying, here I am, I'm loving you with everything that I have in me. So what does that mean? What does it mean? I'm loving you with everything I have. Well, if we were healthy, we're not healthy. If we were healthy, this would be the full thing of love that we have to offer. This is what it would be. And you would feel so fulfilled, and we would feel so fulfilled, and that bond would be like this, that can't come apart. We couldn't go and do what we did if it was this. Okay? It's not that. Because he has this weak attachment, and what it does, it curtails our ability to love. So therefore, our love is rather shallow. It's not developed. It doesn't develop fully. And that's what our love's like. Now, to us, it feels like this. That's what it feels like. But it's not. This is all I could give. When I go back and I look at the women that I hurt, this is what I gave them. I thought I was giving them this. Mistaken. I was very mistaken. Okay. I wish I had known about the attachment wound. I wish I had known about the compulsive disorder. I wish I had known about those things. And many things could have been different and could have changed a lot with that. But I didn't. I didn't love them well, and I didn't give them what they deserved. And, when I got into the relationships, I didn't get into them ever thinking I was going to hurt them. right? It wasn't intent. It wasn't like, hey, I got you right here. You're like the home base, and I'm gonna go out here, and then I'll only come back to the home base. It wasn't like that at all. I actually saw them, felt them, and felt they were different. This is going to last. It's going to be meaningful. So I loved them, but I loved something more, which again, completely oblivious to. What I loved more was being noticed, being affirmed, and being stimulated, right? That's what I noticed. And when those things happened, nothing else existed. So why those three things? Why being noticed, being affirmed, and stimulation? Go back to my story. Many of you know what that story is. Father dies at 5, mother have a nervous breakdown, sent out to people I don't know for a year, come back, mom got to work, two older sisters don't want to deal with you. We live in a city, in my room a lot, just entertaining myself and bored, lonely. When mom did get back, get home, she was exhausted. My mother was a very sickly woman. Right? She was like 5'1" and weighed 90 pounds, probably soaking wet. I mean, but she was a sickly woman and she ran out of energy. So she came home and she was ready to crash. So therefore, I don't get noticed. I don't get affirmed and I have no stimulation going on. Get older, I'm about 10 years old now, and I actually get my first springs at 10. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. In fact, I was actually overstimulating. I was overstimulating for them. I was too much for them because it's like, come on, we can do, and like, dude, back off. What the heck is wrong with you? And it was just the fact I was so excited about all of that. So that was what went on with me. I was I love the stimulation. I love being noticed and I love being affirmed more. Now, today, I love much better. I would hope my wife says that. I love much better. But you know what? I still struggle. I still struggle. Now, I'm really good at noticing her. I'm really good at going out of my way to do a lot of things for her. I'm really good at buying gifts, and surprising and things like that. I'm really good. I think I take good care of her that way. But I also tend to withdraw. You know, I do. Spend a lot of time at this desk. Maybe too much time at this desk. And only always listen, you know, intently. We have this issue, she'll bring it up. She'll be sitting in the living room and I'm walk in and standing there and we're talking. And as we're talking, I am just slowly walking backwards out of the room. And finally, turn and gone. And she's like, where are you and where are you going? And I do that subconsciously. I am not aware that I'm doing it, but see, I'm falling back into the old patterns of, you know what, don't get too close. That's crazy. A woman that I've been with for 30 years right now, don't get too close. Well, that gap has narrowed very much. Okay. It's not that strong, but it still can come out. It can still be there. And it is because of that attachment wound. That attachment wound, I'm really sorry to say this to you. I'm sorry. It never fully goes away. However, with work, we can do a very good job in being able to manage it. And that's what I do. I manage it. Now, I know you're sitting here, you're listening to me, and you're saying, my God, you're supposed to be one of the leaders in this field, and you're sitting here telling me that you don't engage with your wife the way you sit there and you tell all men to do. I go, yes, but those men will also say, if you talk to them, that Eddie Capparucci admits quite often that he doesn't always get it right. I'm human. And those wounds from the past seem to creep in and catch me off guard occasionally. So, but again, that doesn't mean I don't love my wife. In fact, I love my wife more than I think I've ever loved any person in my entire life. Could I love her more? Yeah. Could I love her better? Yeah. But I still don't have this. Now, I have a lot more than that, but I don't have this. People who have a secure attachment style have this. I'm probably there. This looks a hell of a lot better than that. And what's happening is the people in your life, the people who've hurt you, hopefully what they're doing is they're working to gain this. This is difficult to do because what we're doing is we're battling the past and we don't even know we're battling it. And that's what we need to overcome. Along with, I haven't even gotten into the compulsive nature of what goes on with our brain that also lead to these issues. But I mean, the bottom line, and we'll turn it over to questions. The bottom line is, I think, and again, I'm more than in the trenches with any of you, but I believe that he or she did love you. They loved you the best you could that they could. And I know you don't want to hear that. I know it's not a good answer, but you know what? It's the truth. And if they could have understood they have the attachment wound, they have the compulsive nature, and they could have fixed it, my guess, most people would have fixed it. You know why? Because what we really want is emotional connection. We just don't know it. We didn't know it. And we also confuse sexuality for attachment. That's the way we bond. We bond through physical touch. That's what we knew. Hopefully, many of the people that, the folks you're involved with are working to change that, to shift away from that thinking and to understand that no, the base, the bedrock of a relationship must be emotional intimacy first. And then you sprinkle on the physical to enhance the emotional. And once you start to do that and you start to feel it, it's powerful. It's actually more powerful than sex itself. In fact, I believe, really, for me, being validated is the most incredible, incredible emotional feeling in the world to me. When my wife validates me, I mean, I just want to, start to cry, and I'm not a crier. But that's what it is. It's so much more powerful, that emotional thing. Talk to men about it, and they're like, I don't think this guy knows what he's talking about. I mean, well, no, I do know what I'm talking about. And over time, those who do the work, they see that and they agree. That's what it is. So, Tammy, that's what I got for you today.
Okay, I am a crier, so you got me tearing up. Yeah, and I was thinking, because you said, am I, and I'm like, not yet, but you're still on the journey. This isn't like, well, I've gotten to this piece of the post-it note, throw that other piece away, and there's no more room for growth. I'm going like all of that little piece that you snipped away. I bet next year if we had the same conversation, you go, yeah, there's a piece of that got attached to it back again. And then, I mean, that's the opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And I saw the article, Dr. Eddie was kind and shared it with me in advance. And I say the same thing to partners. You would never do this, so this doesn't make any sense to you. And I do really believe that he loved you to the best of his ability. It just was, very stilted because of his inability to understand. And yeah, the addict partner, the betraying partner is going like, but I do, to the best of my ability.
Right.
So yeah, that post-it note is a post-it notes are a really good visual for, yeah, I'm doing it
You
to the
brought,
maximum of my
yeah,
ability.
you brought up an interesting point that I should really just touch upon, and that's the idea again, of intentionally hurting. If you were with somebody who intentionally hurts you, you're married to a psychopath. We now call them antisocials, and they have an antisocial disorder. Okay, they're on the far end of the spectrum. They don't give a damn. I, if you look at my profile, my personality profile, I am an antisocial. Yeah, I know. Tammy's like, what?
I
But,
am turning my head. So
but,
yeah.
okay, one, I don't have a disorder. Okay, I have a type, right? There's different levels. And with that type, the reason for me is because for me, rules don't matter.
Hmm.
Rules are for everyone else. They're not for Eddie Capparucci. Now that changed a lot, changed a great deal. But there was a big sense of entitlement that came with that. So, but if I was antisocial disorder, then there are I do those exams with almost every client. I can count on one hand, and I'm not even sure I can get through all the fingers, those who had an antisocial disorder, personality disorder. Yeah, they more like me, an antisocial type is that. But anyway, I just want to say the likelihood of you being in a relationship with someone who wanted to get with you and then intentionally hurt you, that's really slim to none.
I know too. So yes, it is very rare,
Yeah.
but there is absolute intent, with that, and it is different. So and you were willing to do the work, and I think that's part of of this is for someone who's willing to do the work, we can change, we can learn and we can grow, and it won't necessarily be our first, like you said, you still want to back up, but I bet you're quicker to go, wait, I'm moving backwards. This isn't what I want to do. And you can think
Right.
through, like this guy named Dr. Eddie Capparucci says, slow everything down and pay attention. Like it's that whole thing, and I bet, if you're if you go if you back up too quick, I bet Terry's getting an amends of like, wow, that wasn't me showing up in my best way. So there's a lot of growth and there's a lot of opportunity for growth. So when you're modeling to other people that you don't have it all wrapped up with a bow, yeah, welcome to humanity, welcome to recovery. It's a journey and we never arrive. So
This is probably the most difficult of all topics that I've ever written about or talked about because it really made me turn inward, got to go back and think about again what had transpired, what I've done, but then bringing me back to where I am today, but yet still seeing the shortcomings, just still seeing those that pop up. And then it became very difficult to do this. It became very difficult to even sit here and talk about it. But what I hope is that it's going to help some of the people who've been betrayed to understand this was not a plot. We did not set out to intentionally scar someone. It was our own being naive to our deficits, naive to the wounds that we had. If we would have been aware of them, we could have changed everything. Now that we become aware of them, we should be on a mission to change everything.
And we hurt loved ones, but like you said, we hurt ourselves. We miss out on the really good stuff. Because we don't
Oh,
know. But we don't know what we don't know, in
that's right.
that case too.
That's
So
right.
okay, we have a bunch of questions. So
Okay.
um my husband is fearful avoidant. He grew up in a chaotic, abusive environment. Do you believe the betrayer gets confused about what love actually looks like and confuses chaos and intensity with love because that is what has been modeled for them?
Yeah, there's definitely a possibility that could be played in that. The fact that it depends on what was the relationship, especially with the mom. Like maybe mom was still a little bit close, I don't know, or maybe dad, one of them. If he got something, or maybe it was even a grandmother, whatever, that again, it's like, okay, there's some sense of bonding, but the chaos just overrides everything. The abuse, and as you say, a chaotic, abusive environment. And what it does, it makes them pull inward because you're afraid. You're fearful. Your home is not safe. It's not safe. Now, I'm sad as I sit here and I say that and thinking about all you folks out there who've been betrayed, and you could probably say the same thing about your home right now too. And it breaks my heart that that's happening. But hopefully that'll change. But no, I do agree. I do agree that I think he could confuse that intensity level with love because it is what he would model.
And Dr. Rob talks often about addicts seek intensity, and there's a lack of commitment and vulnerability if you're constantly seeking that intensity. Porn addiction is a great example. It's a bunch of images and there's no connection, there's no fear of like a vulnerability, so yes, but if that's what you grew up with, then that's what you're comfortable with, even if it's not helpful or healthy. That's just what you know.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm 2 years from D-Day, and Monday is our emotional restitution letter. I have high hopes to be reassured he loves me and we are capable of better, but I'm scared to be disappointed. This session is already so extremely helpful. Will it be available so I can share it with my spouse? Yes. It will probably, it may be posted later today. I'll put the link for where all of these are. Thanks so much for being here for us. The hurt is the worst. But
Yeah.
yes, this and all of Dr. Eddie's and our other resources are posted. I will put the link in after I read the next question.
Okay.
Do you want to
Um,
say anything to that?
yeah, I mean, one, I
Oh,
hope that,
please.
everything goes well on, Monday. Again, you have high hopes. I probably maybe going to
Yeah.
lower down just a bit. See, you have to remember everything we're taking in at the beginning, everything that's new, it's not natural for us. And it's so overwhelming. And that's why, and even today, I had a client earlier today, and him and his wife, he had a wonderful opportunity to really make her feel safe. He would blow it. And again, I had to remember, okay, new to this doesn't, it's not natural. So again, I hope that you're going to get everything you want out of that letter. But if you don't, then I think it becomes the idea instead of just kind of withdrawing, saying, you know what, let's sit and let's talk about, you know, what I was hoping. And again, don't start to wilt on me. Okay. But let me talk about some of the things I was hoping, and maybe you could share with me why they weren't in there and use it as a tool. to again help him to continue to talk and to express, his emotions and his thoughts. And
And
again, I hope it
all
goes
of
really well.
And I do too, but this is just another piece of the puzzle. This is not like, now the post-it note is the full size. This is just a piece along the way. It's setting a foundation for being able to move forward. But, Dr. Eddie was talking, I mean, his relationship with his wife is 30 years, in the making. And so there's all of that, opportunity for continued growth, and I wanted to tag on with you said the hard of looking at where I'm still am. And rather than, I mean, I do that pretty often of looking at these are opportunities. I have more opportunities for continued growth. So rather than looking at it as, here's where I'm failing, for me, I'm in a much better position if I'm looking at it. This is an opportunity, and the more work I'm willing to do, the better my life will be better. I'll have better relationships, all of that. So that reframing for me has helped a lot. I don't like just failing. So, okay. How do you determine if an attachment style and what it is? I'm the betrayer.
Um, you determine an attachment style when by doing an assessment. And there's many places. The one that I send my client to is attachmentproject.com. And that's a free assessment. It's not just a rinky-dink little one. It's a really good one. The reason they give it away free is because they want you to purchase the workbooks that match up with your attachment style. What an attachment style is, it tells you how well can you bond with someone else. Someone who has a secure attachment is someone who can receive and give love with very little anxiety mixed in. People with a different type of attachment, and I'm not going to go into all of them, they have a difficult time, whether it's giving or receiving love without it being very anxious. It's frightening to them. They become overwhelmed by the emotions at times, or they're very overwhelming to other people because they're looking so much to attach. And so again, go to attachmentproject.com and pull that out, and then make sure you bring it into your therapist. Hopefully, you have a therapist. Bring them in, bring it in there, and start to look at what work you can do. Again, you can even buy one of their workbooks. They're excellent, and you could maybe start processing it.
If you're working with a CSAT, part of the assessment tools that they have, there is an attachment. I did put the attachment project link in the chat, but part of the assessments that they provide their clients contains the ECR, which I think is emotional closeness in relationships. Part of that, and when there's challenges within the relationship, your attachment style may have shifted. So often they're also looking at how are you in other relationships, with siblings or friends or whatever. So you may be securely attached with somebody who is like a betrayed partner. You may be securely attached with these people who haven't betrayed you, but right now you're not securely attached with your betraying partner, so having a scope of things. So, and all of these are, self-assessment. So it's good information, and it's a place to start from, uh, it's something that is insecure because of a betrayal wound can move forward and be, get on a path for secure. That doesn't change your ultimate attachment style. If you have anxious avoidant across relationships, that's pretty telling. So
Mhm.
okay. Thank you for explaining the attachment wound and compulsive nature, but can you tell me how that relates to the right versus wrong of infidelity? There is knowledge that it is wrong and that you love someone intensely, and infidelity happens anyway.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, this infidelity is just wrong, period. Okay? What we're talking about here today, this is not an excuse for what we've done, right? Because even if we would have just been a little mindful, like for example, me, the first time I stepped out, and then or even when I thought about stepping out, to say, what the heck is going on? Why would I want to do this? I can't do this. This isn't right. And instead, just go seek help to be able to figure out what it was. That's not where we go. Okay. And instead of my dog sneezing in the background, I'm sorry. Um, but because again, we have a window this big and that's all. We're not looking at the world through here. We're looking at this. And all of a sudden it's like, ooh, attention. Oh, affirmation. Oh, stimulation. One. It's like a dog and you say squirrel and they're gone. And it's the same thing that we did also. But it's not what we should have done. We should have been able to stop, slow down to say, not appropriate, not appropriate. This is not what I should be doing. And then go and seek help. We had choices and we did not utilize those choices. Again, none of this is an excuse.
Yeah, and I have a little different take. Like I didn't feel like I had choices. Like I could not stop. Once I, like it was, it was the only comfort, the only everything, and
Mm,
I wanted to stop and I couldn't. And I knew like I was living completely outside my values. All of those things, and I could not stop until I got help to stop, and you talk about like the deep wounds that, and so you were bored and you were lonely. You were alone. It wasn't just like you were lonely, you were alone,
mm,
and so you found a way in your maladaptive coping mechanisms, that helps you navigate, to physically grow up to be an
yeah,
adult, emotionally not so much, but it's so the right and wrong, we have to completely compartmentalize that. Like that, we cannot look at, right and wrong. We just do that compulsive, actions until we get into recovery. And then we need to take responsibility and accountability for everything that we have done. What are all of the behaviors that we have done in our acting out, across the board. So yeah, I mean, like if, and I've said this before, like think of Dr. Eddie. He's talking about he was a little kid, I mean, he was a little kid, and like that. That's kind of where he got stuck, and so and yes, he got into an adult body, but that little kid is making choices about how to navigate the world, even in the adult body, and so that's what we have to learn to grow up, and then we can absolutely identify right and wrong and all of those things. But we are so broken in our addiction. We are so broken that just compartmentalizing right, wrong, rather than gosh, that was horrible, hard brokenness, and we can learn to heal and grow
mhm.
up. So okay, a lot of us have the same type of attachment wounds, yet we would not hurt anyone like they have hurt us. It seems like there's a huge factor of selfishness involved. I understand having an affair with a woman who gives him attention would fill some of this need, but I don't understand how hiring someone to give him oral sex fills it.
You are absolutely right. There is selfishness. Again, look at the worldview that these individuals have is here. That's it. Okay. Now the rest of the world is out here, including you. But this is what we look at. What is it that excites us? What is it that we're interested in? What is it that scares us? That this is our window. This is the world we have lived in. And again, it is an awful existence. It doesn't feel like it's an awful existence at the time, but it is. And we need to be able to open that up because this means we are inwardly focused. And it is selfishness. And we need to learn how to become outwardly focused to do it. The different, what goes on, what do you get? Remember I said there were three things I just mentioned. There are more. So therefore, for me, it was that need for attention, that need for affirmation, and then what was the other one I mentioned? The the thrill, the adrenaline, to have that intensity. And that becomes the reason that you go to someone and pay them to, perform a sex act. Because one, it's a little risky, not a little risky, it's very risky. And two, is just very different in a way. And that's what, again, if we didn't have a lot of stimulation, we seek that stimulation in other forms. And that's why, again, you look at people who deal with problematic sexual behaviors and they engage in so many risky things. I've known clients who they've taken and gone 3, 4 hours on a drive to meet somebody for an hour and then come back. You're gone the whole day, and aren't you worried that somebody may notice that you're gone or whatever? No, they don't. Don't think about it. Because you're just on this quest now. Because it's kicked in like what Tammy was saying before. It's like you almost feel like I can't, I have to go. No, you don't have to, but that's the feeling. Again, what I feel versus what is real. We have run on raw emotions all our life. More, that's it. We ran on the raw emotions, not the rational thinking when it came to things like this. And so that's why you see again, so much of it just doesn't really make sense, but yet it all really makes perfect sense.
And this is why we talk about addicts need other addicts, because those stories make perfect sense to every other addict sitting in the room. And we'll even go, yeah, I bet you don't even remember the drive all the way to that 4 hour
No,
destination. Like you're in a trance, and you're not thinking of any consequences, and that's what recovery is about, is you think it through. What's going to be yes, I'll go feel good and da 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 da, but then I'm going to have to, like, that's what recovery starts to be. But until we have the tools to interrupt that system, we don't have the tools. And as much as we love you, that little tiny post-it note, we're full on that little tiny post-it note. It isn't enough to overcome, those problematic behaviors. So that's why getting support from others doing this work, that can change everything. Okay, the next one, betrayed partner here. Husband says he loves me and doesn't want to lose me. Almost a year into this formal therapeutic disclosure impact letter completed with therapists, and we're currently in an in-home separation. He's doing all the groups, therapy, 12-step, you name it, but he still occasionally lies about little things to protect himself. I've made it clear that I can handle mistakes, yet he still chooses to lie to cover them up and protect himself. Is this why he says recovery takes, or they say recovery takes 2 to 5 years? Because I don't think my body can handle more years of lies.
right. The word you use there, the most important word, and you used it twice, protect. He does it to protect himself. And again, the compulsiveness just shoots out. That, I mean, is nice. I'm glad he's in his groups. I'm glad he's doing his 12 steps. I'm glad he's doing the other thing. What he needs to be focusing on are what are those fears that are causing him to, again, just react and lie versus being able to say, wait a second, these things here, the reason I've been lying all my life, they probably don't exist any longer. To his inner child, they do. So he needs to work on that. Lying, I have found that the lying is probably the last behavior that winds up lingering for a while. It's the last one. So it takes time. And you're right. Why say recovery, we say 2 to 5 years, because again, one, there's the time you need to recover. Also, there's many different factors that go into the time frame. Sometimes it goes beyond 5 years. Okay. But with the lying aspect of it, if I'm him, I'm really bunkering down and I'm focusing on what is that about? And then also even to get into the habit, if he does lie, to be able to say, no, wait, wait, stop. That was a lie. I'm sorry. And that's when I know men are really healed. When they can pull it back quickly and say, that was wrong. Or even like again, defensive, but no, no, wait, I should not have done that. That's when you can tell that they are healed.
So two things with that, and it's lies of omission too. So like whether it's I lied to you or I lied to you by not telling you the whole truth, I kept some piece of it, that's still a problem. I'm curious if you discover these lies or if he does come forward, like putting a 24-hour, you have 24 hours to come clean. Hopefully, it gets quicker, but maybe the first time it's 23 hours, 59 minutes, but that would at least be hope. What are your boundaries around this? When, if he lies and he doesn't come clean in 24 hours, then what is the consequence? I hear you're in an in-home separation, so what are you going to do if he chooses to lie and not come clean? All of those things. But yeah, the lying is really challenging and it is, I think it's probably the hardest thing across the board, and doesn't it's not just in sex and porn addiction. This is across the board in all forms of addiction. That's the big hurdle. But the more we practice, at our residential treatment program, one of our therapists would say, tell the truth and tell it faster. That like we say those things because that's just
Mhm.
unfortunately part of the disease.
Mhm.
Okay, the next one. As the betrayed spouse, how do I help my husband gain this understanding? His priorities seem so different than mine, and he seems to protect his space and freedom over the marriage. I keep asking for emotional intimacy, and he swears he is giving it, but he is not. We keep running in circles around this topic. Every time he pulls away, I feel he doesn't value me and never did.
Okay, so this strikes me as someone, again, who still hasn't quite grasped the concept that being sober is not enough. He probably very much emotionally underdeveloped, and he believes, hey, I'm not doing this, and I give you, you know, this. Why are you happy with me? And you need to be able to work with someone to be able to expand that. Take that, his window is this. You have to be able to open it to say, oh my God, there's other people who have other needs and wants and stuff, not just me. My Why Men Struggle to Love group, this is what we focus on. And that starts in January, and you may want to look to join us for that.
I was going to suggest, yeah, and I already put the link for the work groups in the chat, so they're there. You'll find it on the Seeking Integrity under the work group tab if you're listening to this later. But I was thinking, I was thinking, just like that little post-it. I'm doing all of this stuff, and you're going like, no, the post-it's bigger, But I wonder for you, yeah, I call it the negative two-step. He does this, you do this. He does this, you do this. What if you go, the story I'm telling myself is that you're not able to show up for me, so therefore I'm going to whatever. Debbie McCrae has her webinar tomorrow. She's the queen of healthy boundaries. I would invite you to come join us, for that conversation. Bring this question because she can probably help you create what you need to hold the space for you if he's unable to do so yet. But I loved Dr. Eddie's suggestion about, that work group, like there's more to learn. And if he thinks I am doing all of this, that's y- that's the little tiny post-it. And this video, Scott was sick yesterday, so I'm not sure if he'll get it up today, but otherwise by tomorrow he'll get that posted. So I can relate so much with your share as a betrayer and avoidant myself. I never was able to love my ex-partner the way they deserve. Now I have worked on a lot on this in the past year, and I'm finally learning to love myself and give myself all the validation that I was secretly craving from other people, specifically from women. I have been single for the past 5 months, and I've just started to see someone that I find very interesting. And I am really happy with the fact that I do not sexualize her. With that said, I do not feel quite ready yet. And I'm scared that initiating a relationship would give me back the past habits and validation seeking cravings. Should I stay single and keep focusing on my work?
You just answered your own question. You answered your own question. You know, single for 5 months. Oh, you're not sexualizing her, but yet you still worry about, am I going to go back to that type of lifestyle? And what that tells me is that you're not ready for this. I think it is, maybe a little too soon and too much for you. So I think again, like I said, I think you've answered the question. It's just focus on the work till you get to a point where you feel very confident about yourself and where you are in your walk. That I feel like, you know what, I can handle this and I can do this relationship in a different way, in a way that I've never done a relationship before. That's when you are ready to go out there and start dating.
And I vote you have support, that you have your tribe of
Mm,
people that can support you so that you're accountable, you're talking with them, they're able to see the red flags, if you're missing them, but they're also able to go, yeah, that person is different than what maybe would have been seeking in the past. So
yeah.
really having the support people in place to help you, that makes a huge difference. So okay, the next one. I am a betrayed. I found out a few years ago after decades of infidelity. But what about the integrity abuse problem of purposeful lying and manipulating behavior? How do they work on that?
Yeah, well, once again, they got to break out of the fact that they are, again, the window this big. They're so inwardly focused. But I'm not doing that anymore. So why are you bothering me? Okay? Why can't you just be happy? I'm not doing that anymore. Well, I'm not happy because you're not doing what you need to do in a relationship to make a relationship grow. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. What do you mean a relationship grow? We're married, we're here, we're together. What else you want from me? That's the mentality. And that has to be broken. Some men never break out of that mentality. I'm not saying it's him, but some men don't. So for him, what he needs to work on again and again, the why men struggle in love would be an ideal course for that. But he also should be working with his, therapist. And hopefully he does have a therapist because it seems like he still have a lot more work to do. So therefore he is not still, I hate the word abuse when it comes to lying and manipulating. I'm sorry, I'm going to get myself in a lot of trouble now, but you know what? Yes, it's abuse in a way, but you know what? We start throwing the word abuse around too much. What is it going to do to people, the women who are getting battered, the women who are being sexually violated every night by their husband? That kind of abuse. I mean, I hope we can come up with a better term to describe. Not that I'm saying, I'm not minimizing what's happening. And I'm not saying it's not painful. It is painful. But I think we need to come up with something else to describe that. But he does. He needs more work. But he also has to. Does he want to go there? That's the other thing. Does he want to? And if he doesn't want to, then there's not really a whole lot that you can do.
I'm with you, and the purposeful lying and manipulating is absolutely at the core of addiction. We have to do that in order to continue to hang on to our addictive behavior. So it is purposeful in order to hang on to that. If it is so in so-called recovery, that's not recovery. If we are, yeah, we do step four, we do a searching and fearless moral inventory. How it works: honesty, open mindedness, and willingness. Like the 12 steps are riddled with honesty, integrity, and willingness. And so, someone who is purposefully, if in so-called recovery, is purposefully hanging on to manipulating and lying, is not really in recovery. They may be abstinent from the problematic behavior, that one compulsive behaviors or whatever they were doing, but that is not a recovery path. And so someone who is still in active addiction, which somebody who's just abstinent would be in active addiction, is not going to change. They're going to hang on to lying and manipulating. So I'm going to flip it to you, partner. What are you doing to hold your healthy boundaries
So
so that regardless of what he's doing or not doing, like, so when you discover that he's lied again, what is your choice now? What you're going to make him do? Because you can't make him stop lying. So what are you going to do to take care of you so that regardless of what he's doing or not doing, you have the ability to move forward. You are not stuck in looking at his addiction. You are on a path for finding joy and peace for you, despite all of that pain. You can't make that unhappen. And if he chooses recovery, he can learn to not, I don't live that way anymore. I did. I don't live that way anymore. We can learn if we are willing to do the work.
Right. Just, I wanted to point out, we've only got a couple
Please.
minutes left.
Yeah.
There are a ton of questions. There's like 30
Oh
that are
my
left. We're
gosh.
gonna we're gonna answer them next time. Okay.
I'm going to copy him now.
Okay.
You probably do a better way of doing this, but I just do this and then type them out. So I get them. Oh my goodness, that's like probably a record number, and you get a lot.
Oh, well, now the questions are all coming in based on the comment I made about abuse, which I knew they would. Actually,
Yeah.
not even comments or not even questions or comments. And you know what?
Everybody gets to choose their perspective. I want people to heal, and when people are calling perpetrators, that has a very, I mean, you ask the average person on the street what a perpetrator is, and they're going to say is some a sex offender. Language does matter. The hurt is there, and again, you get to pick your journey.
Yeah.
You can you
I mean,
we want healing and moving forward.
I just, you know what? So this way you can understand. I think what they do is extremely harmful. I know it hurts you tremendously if they gaslight, if they lie. Right? I get that. And you know what? And it shouldn't be done. I don't know what the other word would be right now. I don't. But all I can do is I'm just concerned because we've seen this happen in our society where a certain word loses its real value and meaning. And again, I'm not saying that you're not tortured by it, actually, because it is. It is.
And I always
And
say,
I'm
what
sorry
is
that
the
you go
goal?
through it.
If the goal is to heal, then how do we move forward? If we're constantly focused on, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be a focus on what has happened, but it's also how do you move through that? So, um, we're out of time, so we won't be here on January 1st, but Dr. Eddie will be here the last Thursday of January and the first Thursday of February, and we'll type up all these questions and get to them. So thanks,
All right.
everyone. Happy
Thanks for
holidays.
doing this.
Bye-bye.